Good evening. I've been playing a fair bit of Deadzone, skirmishes on Forsaken Worlds, a potentially miniatures agnostic, futuristic skirmish game. Now, one of the potential draws is Space Skaven, but that's not what we're here to talk about this evening. We're here to talk about the Plague. The fluff talks about the great horror, perhaps the greatest existential threat to humankind, even perhaps all life, is the Plague. Despite dire warnings to stay away from the Death Ark, clue in the name, the lure of alien riches in the region was more than some human explorers could resist, but instead of imagined power and wealth, those that trespassed within the Death Ark found only monsters and destruction. They found the Plague, now believed to be the single greatest threat to the galaxy. The Plague is not a bacteria, nor is it a coronavirus. It shows far more sophistication, displaying clear motility and target selection. Speculation has it that the Plague is actually a biological weapon of supreme complexity. But yes, we're basically talking about zombies from outer space. Now, to be fair, Mantic does a fantastic range of entirely affordable Plague miniatures, but I'm thinking, what can I do with what I've got? And that's our focus for today. So we've got some Warlord 60mm bases, some Mantic Enforcer bodies and bits and bobs on a sprue there, some big guns, some Mantic squats, some Games Workshop Gould arms, the Rogue Trader Nurgle sprue, a whole load of some kind of old Chaos Hound, and then a whole load of random little bits of heads and guns from the bit box that maybe or may not be useful, and some Anvil Industry heads. First up, we're going to talk about the big boys, the Aberration and Corruption. So coming in at 40 points, that's a lot, given that a human Gump is about 6 or 7 points, I think 6. So close combat, teeth and claws, bit of armor piercing there, club, armor piercing, wicked blade, lots of armor piercing, frenzy, which means re-rolling hits basically, and we're good at fighting and reasonable saves and not particularly fancy range. So these are fantastic, these Gellerpox miniatures. I mean, this one looks very clearly kind of cyberpunk, futuristic, mad experiment, Frankenstein experiment gone wrong. And that's why on his base I kind of put some random bits from random futuristic sprues I could find. He looks like it'd be quite a pain to paint in terms of, not a pain, you know, the features are very prominent. There's a lot going on, but it's gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. He, strangely, with his horrible ears or whatever is, yeah, those are ears around his neck, that's horrible. But he looks like he could equally be on the field of some medieval setting as well as some futuristic ones. So we're going to keep kind of fantasy bits around his base rather than futuristic ones, just so he can maintain that kind of multi-use. He does look a bit like Maui from Moana Has Got the Plague. And I put a bit of liquid green stuff here. I don't know if it'll make a difference because the models go to come together in quite strange, obviously computer-generated ways. But they do look gorgeous. I'll go to the back there. He's got obvious leadership ability, which puts him and his 40mm base clearly in the frame for the Stage 1A Plague Lord, a bit of a fighter extraordinaire with some extra tactician dice, more I think than a lot of leaders. Very hard to put down, tough, 4 hit points, armor 2, cripplingly slow, again, and a fair whack of points. But an interesting skill mutation. Over here, also from the Gellerpox, Sprue, and because I have a morbid sense, and I just had all these random Mantic heads left over from Deadzone 2nd edition, I thought, you know, he's a bit of a skull taker perhaps, or a helmet taker, like in Predator. So that's leader number 1. Leader number 2, can you guess where that head's from? Yes, it's from the Cadian Sprue. So he's a bit of a mashup. I mean, the detail is not great on these Mantic Enforcer miniatures, but I'm thinking I'll just put a kind of that white wash, I forgot what it's called, the one that's like a greyish wash, and then just dry brush it white. I'm not going to go wild with these. And he's a leader as well. And on his 25mm base, he clearly looks like the general, a bog standard human with the plague who's a leader, pretty snazzily fast, 2 to 3. Squishy, only 2 hit points, not a very good fighter, not very good at ranged, not very good at saving himself, not particularly tactical, but with infection, which means when you use one of your tactical dice, you know, you get to roll, I think, 3 base plus the tactician qualification of your leader, so, you know, it's 4 dice, but if one of them shows the splat, the Mantic splat sign, then you get to use infection, which looks like it means if you kill one of the enemy, they raise, as in The Walking Dead, as a zombie in the middle of the enemy, which can't help their battle plan. So, you know, a bit of fun there, albeit, you know, dirt cheap as a character, but squishy as heck. And then these are the ghouls. Well, the first types of ghouls I'm doing. Now, in Deadzone, what I've found is that grenade launchers are pretty fantastic because they get people out of crow's nests, and they throw people around even if you don't quite hit anyone or injure anyone. So they're quite useful. And so these again are from the Cadian 40k Imperial Guard sprue. And I just put one hand from there with the grenade launcher and then another hand from the ghoul sprue. So these are probably ghouls. That's one of the Anvil Industries heads. He's Corporal Klutz because he's obviously tripping over those rocks. But then again, your brain being revamped by some horrible deadly virus does that to a man. And that head, can you guess where that's from? It's from, can I remember where it's from? The old Chaos Marauders sprue. But, you know, he looks all right. In keeping, you know, gone a bit savage. But, you know, a virus will do that to your brain. And these guys are quite tall. But like in The Expanse, they could be from one of the outer planets, you know, where gravity is less. Now, these also are going to be ghouls, in the sense that they have weapons and know how to use them. This cackling skull just blazing away. I mean, some of these, unfortunately, are a bit too animated to be dead. But, you know, again, the virus is keeping them going. Can you guess where that head's from? Yes, it's from the Flagellant sprue. And so he'll be walking around with his little flamethrower. So these guys can actually shoot. Because when I say ghouls, I mean they're basically just humans, bog standard human infantrymen with access to some actual ranged capability, which in this faction is usually quite limited because you focus on zombies and big scary super zombies. I mean, these dogs, not a great miniature. I mean, look at that. What's the point of that? But with my very poor green stuffing skills, and you can see I didn't mix in enough of the blue stuff, you know, I filled in the gaps. I mean, that is not exactly an expert green stuff tail, but it will do. He looks sufficiently diseased. And he's basically a zombie dog who's a tad faster than a zombie, tad better at fighting with frenzy, and a tad bit more expensive. But I think people don't take too many of them because the zombies don't give the enemy victory points for actually killing them, which is a real downer and a game changer for you. The Swarm. And yes, that's a random gene stealer. And what do they bring to the table? Well, I guess pretty good fighting, pretty hard to put down, hit points 3 with tough, and armor piercing 2 with the acidic bite. Nasty. I mean, I wanted to say with these, I had such trouble with the legs. I mean, if you imagine that there was a sprue of 5, so there's 4. And I don't know what I did wrong. I didn't follow any instructions, but look at this. This is what's left. I just want to say to any manufacturer who thinks it's worth keeping legs separate, we don't enjoy fighting with gravity, particularly if your plastic doesn't quite take normal plastic glue very well. I mean, I adore Mantic. I think Ronnie Renton is a hero, but I think these might have been slightly earlier kits, and they are a pain. I mean, unless this guy's going to be doing the can, what's the point? There's no way of, both these legs don't work. I think what I'm supposed to do is take one of the legs that's sort of standing straight and put these to show they're kind of running. But by leaving both running legs to the end, I've created a useless miniature. But he's not useless. He's going to be lying dead on a battlefield somewhere near you soon. And actually sometimes, the effect can be quite cool. Like he looks like he's kind of holding back on a surfboard. Because the gun is so heavy, he's got to counterbalance the weight. And then look on his base. There's some bullets flying out, even though this might be a laser burst gun or something. But, I'm going to be using it as a heavy machine gun. Yippee-ki-yay, mother. It's a family show, this. And then there are the zombies. Let's move these back. These are just the Walking Dead, or rather the Walking Little People. And I think you've seen these on other videos, but I've now made a few more. I mean, they do look slightly purposeful, given that they are dead. And that's another one of those heads. You see, from the Flagellant sprue, Games Workshop Flagellant sprue, with its kind of chiseled teeth, like Biter from Game of Thrones. Which is why I've got so many of these heads, because really, what can you use them for? They look very ghoulish. And they're these guys, they just want warm hugs. He's kind of finding his way. Unfortunately, some of them are running, which again makes him look very dynamic. And then I'd be interested in thoughts on whether this guy is plausible. Or whether the head's too big. I mean, the head is the same size as those. From the side, it looks all right. I could have cut off a bit more of his throat. A bit rounded at the bottom, but becoming a zombie doesn't help. And in terms of the narrative, why would he still be wearing his helmet? I suppose the answer is everything else is kind of flaked off, but that one is strapped on. Representing Games Workshop stumbling along through foolish corporate decisions. Nah, we're not going to be salty about Games Workshop. We love Games Workshop. And then I remembered that actually I had a whole load of these in the garage, sitting there since Warhammer 7th edition, when all they did was act as diverters in the craziness that was the rank and flank game. So you'd run these out in their little row of 6, tilt them at like a 45-degree angle, making someone charge you at a strange angle, and then slam them into the side with another unit. And they only saw, I think, one game, and they were awful. People used to joke and call them reindeer for the obvious reason. But actually that one's plausible. The others weren't great. And so I ripped off the reindeer antlers and did some dodgy green stuffing. I'm sure they'll be fine. And then put them onto round bases. And then I'll spray them a different colour because, this was never very exciting. I mean, it's not a great green stuffing job. I'm not sure how to do a better one. But maybe they will paint up all right with some kind of contrast paint, brown. And there you have it. Thank you for watching to the end. Corporal Klutz says, please do smash the like, comment and subscribe buttons. I'm open to any comments, frankly, if you think any of these miniatures aren't really viable and look a bit weird, even out of kilter with having a mind-altering plague infestation. And please do subscribe if you want to see these get painted. I have a feeling they are high up because in the painting queue, because I have a game in a few weeks and I either play with all of those Gnaws, those orc squig thingies, which will be quite entertaining, running around going crunch, bite, or I play with the Neosovs again, or I get these ready in time and surprise my opponent with a whole bunch of pointless zombies. Pointless literally, because you won't get any points for killing them. Anyway, have a good evening and see you soon.